Hello folks, this is Roland Kim with the Kim Boona Real Estate Team. We're a top 1% real estate team in Greater Vancouver area. With Keller Williams, we can help you buy or sell properties from Chilliwack to Squamish, so just reach out and give us a call. Today I want to pour in your bucket and give you some advice. I want to talk about the top 8 mistakes to avoid when you're buying a property. Number 1 is ignoring the total ownership cost. And this mistake is more important as you get more mature, as the expenses increase versus early in your life. What I mean by that is when I purchased my first condo 20 years ago, I certainly was stretching myself. I was buying outside of my comfort zone. There's certainly some expenses that I wasn't entirely sure how I would save up for them, but I knew that as long as I kept working within my capacity was maybe trimming back some enjoyable, indulgences, but I could tighten my belt enough that I could cover any expenses. So, it was a little bit more suitable to go into the wide world of unknowing with knowing that I could cover those smaller incremental costs should they come up. Now, when you put that into my world a year ago, when I've upsized the family home, family with 4 kids, we really had to crunch the numbers to make sure that we could afford the home, because the costs, everything from your heating, your electricity, your taxes are so much more than, of course, when you're living on your own in a 1-bedroom or the expenses from 20 years ago. So I noticed that a lot of buyers will get really excited by the purchase price and by the ability that they can purchase that property, and they will ignore the total ownership cost. And so that beautiful dream property of theirs can eventually become a hardship, and a property they wish they didn't purchase, they wish they might have purchased a little bit smaller, a little bit less in money, and a property that, costs a lot less to service. So total ownership cost is a key thing to remember when you're buying a property, and you don't want to ignore that. Secondly is getting an inspection done. It seems kind of like common sense. Why wouldn't you get an inspection done? Yes, it ranges anywhere from $600 to $1,600, depending on the type of home or property that is being inspected. And often, I think the reason why people don't get an inspection is because they talk to their neighbor, their friends, and they've discovered that, nothing really came up in the inspection that killed the deal, so to speak. But what did come up was a laundry list of items, that maintenance items that are going to be coming up in the future. And if you don't do an inspection, you're kind of going into that with eyes closed versus eyes wide open. And it just allows you to enjoy the home so much more in the future when you chose to take on the property with its limitations, with its challenges, with its upcoming costs, versus blindly launching forward and thinking that the home is in better condition than it is. Remember, any property is kind of like a human body. It's got lots of problems. It is breaking down, but every property is different based on how it's been kept and how it's been poured into and maintained, just like a human body. So the inspection is really good at getting that sorted. The third one is buying in the wrong location. And I can certainly say my wife and I experienced that. The house before the last one, we had some great neighbors, but we also realized, having 4 kids, that there was no young kids around us. Although we were very close to the school, we really wish we bought a house maybe even 300 meters away from where we were, because it would have been so much easier just to have the kids playing between houses in the front yard. And that small change was not prevalent and wasn't as obvious to us prior to us having the kids of a playing age, because we weren't used to it yet. We weren't playing in our front yard with kids until our kids became old enough. So although we got the city right, we got the neighborhood right, we love where we live, we got the location wrong based on where we were in our life and based on the needs that we had. The other one is being too emotional. I can say that our second last house that we purchased, I am at fault for that as well. It was one of the high market trending times where it felt that every house was going in multiple offers, and it was very hard to evaluate what the home was worth. And on hindsight, we overpaid for that home. And it's probably my least favorite home that I've ever purchased as far as the numbers, because over an 8-year period, we practically made no money on it, which is nearly unheard of in the Vancouver marketplace. However, it did get us into the neighborhood and allow us to move into the right direction down the road. But, being too emotional can really bite you in the butt, so to speak, because you are making your decisions not on your boundaries, your needs, your wants, and your own emotions. You're getting elevated experience and you're reacting to other people's actions. And sometimes it can work in your favor because it motivates you to pull the trigger on a property you otherwise might have overthought. But often it can make you rush into a home that is not the right home for you. Not considering future needs is another key mistake you want to avoid. Now, if you know you're never going to have kids, that might impact you on how many bedrooms you need. Perhaps if you're only going to have one child, that also impacts you. If you know that in the future your grandparents or your parents are going to move in with you, all those components are really important in what your future needs are. The friction costs of buying and selling in the Vancouver marketplace are huge. We have property transfer tax, realtor fees, legal fees. It's one of the most expensive places in the world to sell because of the property transfer tax. And as a result, it's not very affordable to move in and out of properties. And so you want to make sure to reduce those friction costs, that you are considering what your future needs are, and that you are buying the right home that works for you now and works for you in the future. Next mistake is rushing the process. Sometimes folks, my clients, especially repeat clients, will not sit down with me in advance until they see a property that they just walked through in an open house and they're very excited, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I think we might want to upsize. Now that has worked out many, many times successfully, but it would also be more palatable and accommodating if we could have sat down weeks, months in advance and come up with an action plan to make sure that we are, aware that they're looking to upsize, aware of the numbers, and just getting more prepared so that we're not rushing the process. Another mistake that a lot of people do is not talking to the neighbors or the neighborhood. If you're going to buy a home, especially a detached home, I highly suggest that you talk to the neighbors, find out who is living there. Maybe a little bit of gossip comes up. You can tell the type of personality that you'll be living next to, and that is very important.